Welcome, everybody. You are with Dr. Zoo. Just a little thumbs up if you can hear Dr. Zoo. Very important. Running around a little bit late today, but it's still 4 o'clock on the buzzer. Here we are, Monday, 29th of June, 2026, nearly the end of the financial year, people. That means a lot to some people, means nothing to others. Sunshine Coast, fantastic. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Great to have everybody and anybody on board that is willing to listen. Indonesia, wow. Indonesia, how good's that? We got some clients up there too. We're fair dinkum. That's fantastic to hear Indonesia is on board. Very good indeed. So we are now here at episode 85. 85 we've been together. Wow. Fantastic. Great response to last week's update. Very, very good indeed. Brisbane, fantastic. I guess it's all raining up there. It's raining here today in Albury, Wodonga. Now listen, we had a bit of a meeting again today, as we usually do with the IT, and we think that because the way in which the excitement is with Zucoins, Zucaz, Zutopia coming, SplitChain, and looking around the world to some of the things that are absolutely well behind what we've been doing and how we're motoring along this by the end of this year with our quantum computing. Quantum is the magic word. Don't worry about AI, quantum. Dr. Zoo's going to talk about that today because there's been some very interesting things he's been watching on the weekend. But listen, we decided that given that this is the beginning of a wonderful journey, really, in the sense of how powerful the system is with scalability and all the wonderful things, particularly as we're getting used to that word Zoo tokens. Now, Zoo tokens, for those that are new to the show, they are our answer to what everybody else cannot do anywhere in the world in terms of the smart contracts that we can perform as a result of no fees and charges by fractionalising to 32 decimals, a Zucoin. So you have the Zucoin, that is the diamond. The diamond in the rough is the Zucoin. And then you have little fragments of that are broken down that can be used for all these wonderful things of real world assets and stuff that Dr. Zoo loves talking about. Particularly loves talking about where the world's going to be heading with these fractions and how we make it work with merchants and consumers directly, revolutionise the way in which we think and conceive ideas about direct marketing between merchants and consumers. That's called Zoo tokens. So think about that one. Get your head on that, people. That's a big thing to remember as we now align ourselves with that. Thailand, always fantastic. Thailand, you guys are amazing up there. We love you guys. We love the fact that you like to listen to Dr. Zoo. Unbelievable, Thailand. So welcome aboard again, which is awesome. I can see on the other screen here that we've got just chiming in now, coming in from our great friends in the US of A, particularly there in Los Angeles. Big following down there. Fiji's fantastic. Europe. Learned a lot about Europe this morning. Thank you to Robert Novak, our CTO, who is beavering away on more stuff behind the scenes. One day you guys will really appreciate the stuff that's pulling together as a result of that, particularly this quantum computing. So it is awesome. Now, let's just dig straight into a little thing of concern that worries Dr. Zoo. Well, actually, there's a little question there. Let me just tackle the one here from KZ. KZ, welcome aboard. And the question you've got is, can AUSTRAC prevent Zucoin Zutopia from operating in Australia? The first thing is it can't prevent Zucoin because Zucoin is a peer-to-peer where you guys are in control. That is your sovereign control. You have the coins and the power to transact as a result of the way the split chain has been built. So when you transact, remember, if you send a Zucoin or fraction to somebody else who has a Zucoin wallet directly, you are the engine that drives that transfer. You are the validator, the transfer, and you get a truth, which we refer to kindly as proof of truth, from the split chain, and that completes the transaction. So that's got nothing to do with AUSTRAC or ASIC as well, because it's you guys moving your money around, your value of the Zucoin. But in terms of Zutopia, yeah, of course, AUSTRAC could get worked up and say we don't like that, and they could absolutely say we don't want Zutopia operating in Australia. Now, that means that you've got the peer-to-peer network only, and that was why we decided to go to the hard roads of getting Australia up and about through the AUSTRAC, through the work that we've done previously with easy bonds, the lots and lots of money that was spent, that we want to make sure we can get that registration through AUSTRAC. Because, funnily enough, Dr. Zu could have made the call and said, nah, let's just forget about all the Australian owners of Zucoins. They can attend to their own processes and do their own thing through their peer-to-peer marketing, because we could have gone live with other countries that we don't need to be licensed in, which is Europe, which is South America, which is the US of A, which is Singapore, which is Hong Kong, all those wonderful sort of countries, South Africa. And the world would have been participating in the growing wealth concepts that we have in play for Zucoins, but not Australians. Now, we didn't want to leave anyone behind. We're not like our great illustrious leader in Australia. For those that are listening, we have a Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese. We call him Albo affectionately. We have a wonderful treasurer called Jim Chalmers. Jimbo. Dr. Zu rattles on about these guys because it just gets worse and worse. It's scary to wake up in the morning to think that these blokes have got control of the steering wheel and trying to run the show, because they're a bit like Thelma and Louise, actually. If you've seen that movie, Thelma and Louise, go and have another look at it, because there they are, and they're driving that Cadillac off the cliff. And that's the same cliff that our two little mates are driving at the moment. They're taking Australia in the Cadillac with them off the cliff. But we have plans, people. Dr. Zu has plans to, a bit like fighting Darth Vader, actually. We have an alternative universe that we are fighting in to bring sovereign control and rights back into play. So no big dramas. So hopefully that answers your question, KZ. That's why we are patiently waiting and really in a position where we decided to do the hard work with dealing with AUSTRAC, who are one of the better Australian government bodies to deal with in past experience. Very transparent. They're doing a job. They want to make sure there's no naughty money floating around, and they want to make sure that you report on that, which is exactly what Zutopia can do to a level that even the other exchanges struggle with. So, and guest 148150066, couldn't Zutopia just go offshore? That's correct. It could go offshore. It could operate offshore. It could have clients from around the world. But guess what? The banks, etc., would block you as a resident of Australia from participating on Zutopia. So you would not be allowed to use Zutopia. So Zutopia itself, as an entity, can sit in the Pacific somewhere and operate. It could sit at Malta. It could sit anywhere it likes in the world, quite legally and compliant. But you as an individual, because of the way the government operates here in Australia, and there's more ID checks coming, people. That was the start. We told you this. Dr. Zu warned you about under 16-year-olds, worrying about them, because the real agenda was to worry about you as a person, and the way they control your money, your bank accounts. This is a big, big problem. In fact, it's a big problem. Yes, it's still operating in Thailand. Don't panic, Thailand. We haven't got Thailand on any hit list. So, yeah, look, the iOS standards that you're talking about there, Grateful Gem, 20022, they're all standards that relate to industry governed bodies in terms of the processes. That there's a whole lot of standards, actually. So don't worry about the standards, because we have created some of our own standards within the protocol. They are just reference points, in fact, that ticks boxes. But if you look at the iOS standards, there are thousands of different standards that you can or can't comply with. It's not a compliance regime in any event. It's the basis upon which you may build the foundation of how you have your protocol, and some things just don't apply. They're not relevant to the way in which these things operate. So, again, just for clarity's sake, Zutopia certainly could operate anywhere it sees fit as a body. It could even operate out of Australia, good old Albury, but it, in its own right, would not be able to accept Australian customers. So, that's just how we do. Now, from memory, Grateful Gem, I just wanted to reflect. It was all coming back to Dr. Zoo, but you're making a reference here to iOS 20022. Now, that's a standard from memory that relates to financial messaging. And from what I recall now, it provides sort of a structured language in exchanging electronic data. It's not so much you need to comply with it, because the standards we use are all based on third-party standards complying with that. Because if you want to send any Zucoins using the Zucoin wallet, then that's why you have notifications, and you have the back engine part through Apple, which is subject to those standards, and also Android. You have all of the other processes that you could use. You can use Zucoin transfers with WhatsApp, Snapchat. You could anything that's a copy and paste. You can do it by email and all that sort of stuff. So it just means that yes, the way we operate, we just interconnect, and that is a tick box in relation to being part of that standard, if you like, which makes it a lot easier for the AML, and makes a lot of the fraud prevention techniques more accurate, which sort of hones in on what we put into our proposals with AUSTRAC. So don't worry your pretty little head about that. That's all very good. And yeah, a lot of the other payment systems are all sort of honing in on that, because that's what they do. That's how they need to comply with those things. Whereas you've got to remember, just think about this, Zutopia. It doesn't have any processes of custodialship of coins. It's you guys doing it directly through the peer-to-peer, and you operate those transfers effectively through any messaging systems you want. And secondly, the money is paid through the payment systems, which are governed by those sort of standards in relation to Stripe, and the money goes directly from one Stripe account to another. So we don't have any transfer capabilities necessary, and that gives us the firepower under the Corporations Act as well. There's not being a financial product, not caught by the new provisions as a crypto exchange. And that gives us the advantage, people, the big advantage as to why there's a lot of problems now currently in the EU with these exchanges. So all we do basically is on forward the message that you want to process or send to Stripe, and that in a way can on forward that message we do without any changes or interference directly to Stripe, because they are your accounts within Stripe in real terms. Now we're Grateful Gem. Here we go. You like a punt, Dr. Zoo, and I wouldn't hold you to it, but if you were going to have a punt when the Gulfstream G800 landed in Albury, 1, 2 years or 3 years. Look, I got to tell you that the concept of the G800 really needs to be sooner rather than later, because the only question about that sort of a punt is Dr. Sue's not sure how long his old ticket keeps going. So the quicker we get the plane, the better. If Dr. Zoo had his way, he'd put an order in now and want delivery over the next couple of months, even if it was second-hand one. That's exactly how Dr. Zoo sees it. So the quicker, the better. I think 3 years, good God, don't want to be hanging around for 3 years. We've come this far, and we want to see some action. In fact, had a great conversation with I hadn't spoken to this bloke before, but I won't say who it is. Great guy this morning, and super impressed, actually. Unbelievable. This came about as a result of a call relating to horses, and it turned into getting a bit of background. And this guy, let me tell you, this is one right out of the box. It surprised Dr. Zoob, but let me tell you, it's an absolute extraordinary story. Through risk and accumulation of his asset or cash position, has now accumulated over 3 million Zucoins. Didn't even have a clue anybody was doing that, but we knew there was a bit of that sort of a take-up happening. Well, there's wallets out there, and Dr. Zoo wouldn't have a clue the wallets are attached to, unless they'd come through the original purchases or whatever, which that list has gone pretty thin now because we just haven't had any sales. along those lines. But what an amazing achievement! Accumulating 3 million from people that have sort of been, concerned and got out, and there you go. Now, this person could be one of the great absolute superstars in relation to accumulation of potential wealth. I'm absolutely gobsmacked with that. But well done. Well done. Up north, this is what happens up north. Queenslanders in the top of Australia, absolute legends. They can run their own show on these sort of things, and here he was. Boom. Anyway, I'm still I think it's fantastic because that's 3 million plus coins out of the market. Can you believe that? There you go. Yeah, and magnificent pal. You're right. I've always talked about it. Won't change. It's my personal view, Dr. Zhu's view, based on pure mathematics, the quantity theory of money, and that would see at least 20% of the value of Bitcoin. Even though, as we know, boom, its price has dropped. I think we're back down to 59,000 US dollars. But what the heck? 20% of that would be a lovely 12,000 USD in the bank. Convert that to AUD and lock and load. There'll be 6 Gulf Streams sitting out at Albury Airport, one for each day of the week, and then we have a rest on Sunday. So, that's fantastic. I was very excited to see that. Now, let's talk about, and we got here curious character. That's why it will take many, many years to get up. One person could dump the price forever himself. Well, it's not about that, because remember, you've got to remember what we're saying. We're not like Bitcoin where you've got a handful of big players like Michael Saylor, who's in he's in deep doo-doo land, doo-doos and doo-doo land everywhere. For those that don't know, used to be MicroStrategy or Strategy. 99.8% of the share value has collapsed. And let me say this, so's the price, and he's underwater. His average entry price about 76,000 US dollars at 59. There's a lot of floaties required for that one, and that puts pressure on the Bitcoin. He says that he can cover it with the debts at the moment, but I did read an article on the weekend that said the bondholders, and this is an interesting scenario, people, because generally, even in the 1987 crash, it was the bondholders that made some money and got out of the bad times. The shareholders usually lose pretty first up. They go down the toilet quickly. Unsecured creditors go down really quickly. Bondholders tend to have some sort of a fixed asset security position. And if they're holding the balance of coins over everybody else, the word was, if Strategy got liquidated tomorrow, Bitcoin would collapse, but the bondholders would just about get their money of $29 billion back in their back pocket while everybody else goes down the gurgler. And we'll soon see that asset. This is what's called NTA, the net tangible asset. If a balance sheet doesn't have that, you start to worry, panic, bring out the panic scenario, the anxiety, because Bond Corporation and Bell Group in the 80s were exactly the same. They had massive debts through bondholders. They call them junk bonds in some instances. So, it's interesting because those creation of these particular bonds was done by Michael Milken, who he spent a little bit of time in the pen, but he raised and created the first effective IOUs that revolutionised the way in which mergers and acquisitions could take place. RJ Nabisco was one of them. Drexel Burnham, from memory, was the firm that he was with, and he's now consultant to the world on how to keep the world economy going. Could you believe it? These blokes, they come up and pop out of nowhere, and away they go again. So it's a bit scary, but there you go. Now, curious character. Oh, yes, we've got people accumulating Bitcoin. Wow, look at that. Magnificent pal. Quote, I have over 250,000 in coins. Unbelievable. There's going to be some really, really exciting, rich times as a result of this. That's taken Dr. Zhu by surprise. Those that are accumulating, well, good on you. Fantastic news. That is really cool. Which is why, in our meeting today, as I was trying to allude to earlier, we think the Albury-Wodonga region, given the firepower we have with the ability to create wealth while everything's looking pretty ugly. And Dr. Zoo won't change his mind. He's had a couple of big guns talking about the big collapse in October, September, October. Let's hope it doesn't happen. Let's hope Dr. Zoo is completely wrong, completely out of left field, in the sense that the vast majority of people are going to lose a lot of wealth. But we've seen issues now already with the housing capital or equity in housing, negative gearing, all these fruitcake changes that is happening at government level. And if that continues to persist and the Iranians keep lobbing a few missiles here and there, I don't know how they manage to fire these things. You'd think you could blow the hell out of it. You'd destroy it once and for all. But anyway, they seem to keep coming back and back. Extraordinary concept, isn't it? A peace treaty. Let's have a memorandum of understanding to not fire on each other, but we've got more missiles going off than we started before the memorandum of understanding. What a concept, eh? You get the freedom to blow the shit out of people, but you've got the backing and support to know that there's really going to be a peace deal. It's bizarre, absolutely bizarre. But the good news is tokenisation, Zoo tokens, will be the strength of coming back into play that will allow for mergers and acquisitions that Dr. Zoo's always wanted to get back into. And if the share values fall below the NTA, like I just indicated with strategy, the only winners in that company are the bondholders at the moment, then certainly you would pick up the assets underneath. And we can help. We can help people that are going to get crucified in the next, what are we now? 29th of June. So 2 days from now, there's going to be a bucket load of companies that have already in trouble with being licensed in the EU. Doesn't affect Zutopia, but it is an illustrious list of companies that are in trouble. So already, those without a license that look like they're going to struggle, we have at the top of the list Binance, then we have BitGet, then we have MEXC, HTX, Bitfinex. Remember Bitfinex? That's the crew that many years ago lost a bucket load of bitcoins to the theft. It's the subject of I think it's a Netflix series or movie about the couple that knocked off the coins and cost them X billions of dollars today. But there you go. Bitfinex is in the list. BingX, Bitmart, LBank, White, BIT, and CoinX. Now, there's either going to be a transition of people that are struggling because they haven't got a ability to trade, and they might shift across to Coinbase, Kraken, Crypto.com, OKX, or Bybit, or Bitstamp, or Gemini, as an example. KuCoin, that do have their licenses in Europe. We got a better plan for them. We have a better plan, people. We want to see through our negotiations and what we're doing here that anything that you would like could be wrapped in a Zoo token that then can trade around the world in Zutopia without all these problems. And that becomes the new flavor of the day. So you have your Zucoin diamond, that'll always be preserved the way it is. And then you have the fractions, you have the Zoo tokens, and away you go. Away you go. So there you go. Now we've got another one here. We've got the chain, curious character. The chain holds the data, your personal wallet, just or your data. Now, I think what you're saying there, well, the chain doesn't hold the data. This is the whole point. If you read the information on myzucoins.org or the main website, Curious Character, you can bring yourself up to speed. In fact, you could just do a search in AI and you'll get the whole gist of the structure of SplitChain. But what it does, it only stores per wallet the last transaction and the balance. So there's no other data on the SplitChain other than the last transaction and balance. That is the truth. It's there to tell you that a yes or no scenario. If you think you have coins in your wallet, then the SplitChain will verify that. It won't have any other data. So what do I mean by that? Well, curious character, let's say you and Dr. Zoo decide to do lots of transactions with each other, and all of a sudden we do 50 million transactions because we can. There's no fees. We can fractionalize that. We can go to 32 decimals, and we could sit here till the cows come home. A lot of cows when they come home, and that 50 million transactions actually sits on your phone and my phone. It's called it's localized. It's localized to the capacity of the phone. And there's plenty of capacity in the phone. Don't get me wrong. Phones these days, you could run Netflix from it if you like. There's so much data. Not like the old days when Dr. Zoo was running around with the first Honeywell computers as an accountant, and the big machines were in the office and churning away, and then we had discs, and oh my lordy, that was the real invention of how to store data to where we are today. Massive amounts. So even if we had 50 million transactions between us, you'd have 50 million on yours, I'd have 50 million on my phone, and there'd be 2 transactions on SplitChain. But it doesn't include all of the data that comes with it, and neither does the smart contracts that relate to the fractionalisation. They stay with the parties that are creating the tokens, as in, for example, we use the case scenario of Turfstar, where there may be 40,000 horses, and that's controlled by Turfstar as a business, and they have all of the connectivities and the data that relates to the virtual horses, of which the person that ends up owning a fraction that relates to a particular real racehorse can verify that by virtue of the last transaction on the split chain, which gives proof of ownership, in fact. And in fact, that's how we're able to succeed with scalability, in the sense that you want to have these products out there that relate to the increase in value that can happen as a result of fractionalisation. Now, I see that Curious Character hasn't really listened to what I said last week, but that's possible. That's possible. I'm not suggesting you haven't listened, but it's possible that you're suggesting that there could be 1 million coins on SplitChain. We hope there'd be more than that. We'd hope that there'd be trillions, in fact, because the idea is that when you take the actual value of a Zucoin, and that's by supply and demand, then what happens is you want to have a lot of Zoo tokens, because the Zoo tokens will be attaching themselves to something in addition to the value of the core Zoo coin. Now, what do we mean by that? Let's go back to the scenario of how you maintain the value on the pure coin versus increasing the number of Zoo tokens, because you've got the benefit of creating globalized instant transferability relating to a particular contract of real world assets. So if you take the excitement, you go to the Coles or Woolies, the supermarket this afternoon, and buy yourself a pineapple. Now, you can look at the pineapple and you know what a pineapple looks like. Pineapple has a couple of jobs in life. The only one I'm talking about tonight is the pineapple getting cut up. Now, you can cut the pineapple up. It might cost you $10 for the pineapple. In fact, Dr. Zoo doesn't know how much a pineapple costs. Haven't bought a pineapple for a while. It's pineapple. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at what a pineapple costs. Pineapple cost. Well, it depends where you are, I suppose, around the planet. But oh, here we go. Typical pineapple is somewhere in the range of $5 to $9. Well, I suppose one of them's the elbow pineapple. He talked about that in Parliament the other day. You don't want to be using them for what our illustrious Prime Minister rudely suggested is happening to people in Parliament the other day. He talked about tearing things. And I guess if they're buying the cheaper pineapples, then that's what happens when you follow the rules of elbow and you tear something. You can use your imagination as to what he was talking about, but it's readily available for all and sundry that want to go back into Hansard and share the experience of what our Prime Minister was tearing. I'm not suggesting that there's a naughtiness going on, but nevertheless, they probably use pineapples. Now, they probably use the cheaper ones at $5. The dearer ones at $9, they'd be more to our standard, really, what we're talking about, a bit more quality. And there you go. You've got the $9 pineapple. Here's an interesting one here too. Coles have a topless pineapple. The hell's that? We've got the one that used by elbow that tears things at the butt end of the butt end. And you've got another one here that's topless. It's all getting a bit, wow. Who'd have thought you could have all this sort of excitement with a pineapple? Anyway, that one, the topless pineapple at Coles is $6.50. So that's probably better average. And, yeah, $6.50. Now, intelligent local, going off on tangents. Well, look, as soon as there's a tangent, just turn Dr. Zoo off. We don't need you to listen. Not that we know who you are, but let me say this. That's the wonderful thing about Dr. Zu. He doesn't care because he's on a mission. He's on a mission to get the Gulf Stream, which relates to the price. And there's all these things happening around the world that are all directly related to everything we do and talk about Zucoins and Zutokens. Now we're talking about a Zutoken. That's not a tangent. All right. The only tangent is you must have left the earpod out because you didn't listen. But that's okay. Dr. Zu understands. But you can turn Dr. Zu off. Just there's a switch there. Just press that. Away you go. The point of the pineapple is that you can buy the whole pineapple for, let's say, $6.50. The top. Let's go for the topless one. And you eat it. That's the end of the pineapple. But what some people do, they're a bit smart. They chop up the pineapple. They get rid of the outside because that's of no use anymore. Obviously, in this case, it's already topless. You don't need to cut the top off. And they put it into a smoothie. And they make 7 smoothies. Now, we know that this happens because this is what Harry and Guru do next door in the coffee shop. They make pineapple smoothies. Dr. Zu loves them. Beautiful. But they charge a lot more. And that charge is far greater than the $6.50. I won't spoil the surprise of what they charge, but I can assure you now they make a lot of money by taking that original pineapple, which is pretty expensive in its own right at $6.50, and turning it into 4 or 5 pineapple smoothies. That's called a margin. And the margins are pretty extraordinary because they're smart. They've effectively tokenized the pineapple. Now, hopefully that image stays with you because that's what a Zucoin does. You have the Zucoin that's very valuable. It may cost you $1 million to buy a Zucoin one day. We'll wake up and say, holy hell, how did that happen? But you can still fractionalize it and take a fraction that can be used for the benefit of trillions of transactions that relate to Zu tokens that then create their own wealth packages. And that's how Dr. Zu wants to plan out the lottery. That's how we're going to build out things in relation to merchants, where merchants can take a coin of whatever value and rebuild it up. So in fact, if a merchant has one Zucoin and puts out 200 Zu tokens of value, like Harry and Guru, and they're spread around the place and they're worth $20 each, guess what happens? The coins come back to Harry and Guru, and suddenly they've got another Zucoin back. It's called the money supply, people. That's what the quantitative theory of money is. That's what the US banks can't do. US dollar. What they do in the States is they just keep printing it with a never-ending printing machine that never stops. That's why you have inflation. Won't go into that because that is a tangent. Dr. Zu doesn't want to go down the inflation road today because we're all stuffed. But by next week, if we look up this thing on the pineapples, you'll probably find they're at $10.99. The way Albo's going. So it turns out, people, just for those that are interested, they sell half-cut pineapples. Here you go. Here you go. You've got Coles and Woolies, Australia supermarkets, for those around the world that don't know what we're talking about here, which is our big shopping complexes. They sell half-cut pineapples for $3.25. So you're starting to get smart. Why sell you the big one for $4.99 when they can sell you half of it for $3.25? So that's $6.50. See how people make money? You split it up, you cut it up, you tokenize it, and then you add value on top. In fact, I did talk to one of our Zucoin holders on the weekend about this. He wants to tokenize his house. How good's that? Yep, multi-million-dollar house. You can split that up into 10 Zu tokens, create land title deeds, etc., to the total pool under a trustee, and then the tokens represent proof of ownership in relation to 1/10 share of the house. And that increases the value of the tokens because that fraction would be worth far more than even if Bitcoin was even if Zucoin rather was trading at some phenomenal rate of, say, $10,000 a coin, because you're going to get 1/10 of this multi-million-dollar property. And it creates liquidity because the coins move around. You don't need to worry about all that. At some stage, the governments will have to catch up because in that instance there, you wouldn't have any stamp duty. The house never leaves the original trustee ownership. But you've certainly got the right to 1/10 of ownership, and you could certainly get the value of that, and away you go. So look, that's tokenization. That is Zu tokens. Part of the reason I was wanting to get onto this was because these things are allowed to be traded around the world. What we want is a massive supermarket, if you like, of different tokens, Zoo tokens, trading on Zutopia. And you'll go in there and you will search things that you really want to see. You will have merchants you can lock in. You will have products. You will have all sorts of licensed and regulated securities that could be there, derivatives. It could be a whole range of things that you start to accumulate in your wallet instead of just looking at the diamond. And the diamond we talk about is the pure Zucoin. What we're talking about here now is all sorts of thousands and trillions of transactions that can interact with each other instantly. No one else is doing that, and no one can. Now, all of that, I'm going to leave the questions for a tick because, well, here we go. In Thailand, pineapple can be 50 cents. Well, this is unbelievable because if you can get the 50-cent one, that's like buying a 50-cent Zucoin and accumulating the pineapples. You're going to make money. You could export those to Australia at $6.50 and look at the margin. There's a market there, people. Already we're starting to see it. It's starting to happen. Now, we have, let me just touch on another couple of little quick ones here. Happy Camper, have there been any other successful applicants in regard to virtual asset service provider applications, or is Zutopia the first to apply with AUSTRAC for this approval? No, there's others, as I understand. I think one of the most recent ones that Dr. Zu saw, which he can certainly put up on the system here. Let's just have a quick squiz of what it was. And it is called Nero Chain, Nero Chain. They announced the success of their application the other day. Yes, they were effective from 31st of March 26, and they are a full spectrum virtual asset service provider. So they received their registration. I don't know when they made their first application or how long that took, but certainly they have got that. And their registration number, just so that those are aware, is DCE 100-888-792-001. So you could assume there's been a lot a lot of applications because it's affected a lot of businesses. It's not just exchanges and things. Anything could get caught. In fact, I was talking to another coin holder on the weekend, and he's involved in the real estate business, and they've been slammed with the same things. They've got to get licensed for their particular business because they're taking money in and out, and they've got to watch that there's no naughty money coming in from China that relates to buying properties in WA. So this is a big thing. This is a very, very big thing that the government's trying to get their head on and control. Now, let's talk about a problem Dr. Zu encountered over the weekend. Let's talk about the negatives. Let's talk about the negatives. It's quite distressing. I'm going to, for listeners listening in from around the world, not distressing if you're a Zucoin holder. Let me put it that way. You're actually laughing. You're back on Blue Star. But distressing for those that, you know, dabbled in the coins, in other coins like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, those sort of coins. The altcoins are finished. They're all washed up. NFTs are done and dusted. You know, the days of buying a $9 million, $6 million banana is gone with a bit of sticky tape. That's gone. But this really caught Dr. Zu's attention. And what I'm talking about is that, yes, we're well aware, everybody, that there is a big thing coming with quantum computing. And while Dr. Zu was enjoying the read about what's going to happen and all the rest of it, and getting a warm and fuzzy feeling about how good our CTO, Robert Novak, had been mapping this out for a couple of years, and we're expecting to be in a strong position with quantum safe encryption by the end of this year, head of the game. There's an article there that was written by quite a significant author in this space of quantum. And I'll just touch on a bit of that first, because what he said is not the thing that puts a shiver up your spine. It's what came after what he wrote in relation to quantum computing, which really disturbed Dr. Zu on the one hand for those that have got Bitcoin, On the other hand, we can be the savior if the Zoo tokens that we talked about earlier are wrapping themselves around Bitcoin with the protections of the quantum safe Zoo tokens that we talk about. So in other words, every single Zoo token, no matter where or what it is or the fractionalisation of it, will be quantum safe. Now, what does that mean for those of us wondering, what the hell is quantum? Now, this is the part of the article. Listen carefully. The largest theft in history has already happened. The people behind it just cannot open what they've stolen yet. Right now, intelligence agencies and criminal groups are quietly copying the world's encrypted data, bank records, medical files, state secrets, private messages, and storing every single byte that's untouched. Now, at the moment, they cannot read any of it, but they are collecting it anyway because they know the key is about to be invented. The strategy has a name. It's called Harvest Now, Decrypt Later. And in 2026, it stopped being a theory. Washington declared this is the year of quantum security in January, backed by the FBI, the NSA, and the NIST. Canada has ordered every federal agency to file a mitigation plan by April. Europe set its deadline for December. Governments do not impose operational declines on a someday future problem. They do it when the clock is ticking. This is what moved the clock. Every password, every transfer, every secret on Earth is protected by one assumption, that a certain maths problem is too hard to solve. However, quantum computers solve exactly that problem. For years, the machine that could do it looked decades away. Then in 2025, Google's Willow chip cracked the hardest part of building one. And in March 26, Google's own researchers estimated that breaking the encryption behind Bitcoin might take fewer than 500,000 qubits, down from 20 million, and will be run in minutes, if not seconds. The day has arrived, Q Day. Now, roughly 6.5 million Bitcoins, about a third of every coin that exists, worth close to $500 billion, sits in addresses that are exposed to the very key a quantum computer needs. That includes the coins of Satoshi, the anonymous creator. On Q Day, they become, in the researcher's own word, trivially stealable. It would not look like a crash or a whale selling. It would look like $500 billion of the most secure money ever built simply walking out the door. This is what sits behind the entire digital world. Your bank balance, a Bitcoin, a classified cable, all of it is real only because of a proof you supposedly cannot forge. Quantum breaks this proof. Everything we call secure is true only until someone finally checks, and for the first time, this will open the floodgates. The honest counter matters. No machine on Earth can break this encryption today, and seriously cryptographers still argue the real threat is a decade away. That is no longer true. Quantum codes, safe codes already exist, and they are desperately trying to mitigate this from the old codes. Bitcoin is certainly in the firing line. It is anything but safe. Now, the breach is not coming. It's already here. We've been banging on about quantum computing for some time. From your Zucoin wallet perspective, you'll be able to relax. We'll be quantum safe because it's been engineered into the original codes and built that we looked at some years ago in preparation. Now, it doesn't affect your Zutopias. It doesn't affect your coins and what we're doing now. What we're making sure is that you, as a Zucoin holder, can relax. But if you are a Bitcoin holder, you should be starting to panic. Now, how do we know this? How do we know that this is going to be an ongoing thing? Well, let's circle back to one of the great participants in the crypto space and what he has to say about it. Because, let me tell you, His record's not that great, but his wealth is absolutely beyond imagination. And that is Changpeng Zhao, CZ. Now, CZ is the founder and owner of Binance. An extraordinary story. An extraordinary story. Now, without going into too much about CZ and Binance, we'll just narrow it down a little bit, but let's just put in perspective. He had to step down because he was naughty, and Binance was naughty, and Binance led to some pretty serious criminal charges and civil charges in relation to US enforcement because the core of its back end wasn't compliant with the law. Now, Dr. Zu takes notice of all this stuff. That's why we don't rush out because someone's half-cocked and want to see us get out there quick. We tick the boxes. We've been very happy with our US SEC compliance, etc., with both Zucoins and Zutopia. But Binance didn't, and it pleaded guilty to the Bank Secrecy Act, had violations as a result of a money transmitter, they had sanctions breaches, and they were certainly caught up in the AML KYC, such that Binance paid a $4.316 billion fine. CZ pleaded guilty. He paid a $50 million personal fine. He resigned as CEO and served 4 months in prison. He did receive a presidential pardon. Now, that was the reason, the predominant reason why Binance didn't get approved in the EU, because he was naughty. And the Greeks there decided that they weren't going to approve it. He tried to take the soft option through one of those countries in order to get Binance approved in Europe. Now, it's not to say in the future they won't. They might juggle a few things around and get confirmed, but it's leaving a lot of customers in a bad space. Now, that most people will transition and probably go to Coinbase, but nevertheless, and we can help as well, by the way. Zutopia can create Zutokens that create wraps around these coins that assist with the transferability in a marketplace by keeping things off. Now, there's a lot of market rigging going on. There was manipulation. There was pump and dump schemes on Binance. There was ridiculous coins and, a whole trading record of stuff that cost billions and billions of dollars of people's money. We talk about the HOC2 coin. The HOC2 coin lost $460 odd million in 24 hours, etc., etc. There's a difference between the market creating a reduced price in the value versus an outright scam or fraud that happens. And of course, none of these coins have got utility or capacity in any sense that can create free trading as you can with a Zu token, which is what our objective has been. Mass adoption, ease of wallet adoption, self-custody control. You are the sovereign owner of your diamond, if you like. That is the Zucoin. You control your destiny. You back it up. You store it. You protect it. You can transfer with anybody with a phone. Very simply and easy, unlike the hurdles that have been experienced in the crypto space, which is why we designed the products that we have and why we focused 2 years ago on quantum safe encryption. We're very happy to report that that's going to be a very exciting release not too far down the road. Certainly by the end of this year is our project plan. Now, the world opens up because everything's exposed. That's why they're cacking themselves, because quantum computing is going to be the wild card. And with the assistance of AI, it's anybody's guess as to how bad this is going to get. In Binance's case, he wasn't deemed to be a fit and proper person to run a global regulatory body like Binance that had to confront all these things. But having said that, let's look at the scale of Binance. Now, at its peak, CZ is estimated to be worth $111 billion. That's as at April 2026. And in the early days, he was turning over, that's the trading between derivatives and crypto assets, your assets or those that have got Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, etc., of about $15 billion a day. $15 billion of value per day. Now, that's about $150 million profit a day. Imagine that. You go to bed, you wake up, there's $150 million in the account. Boom shakalaka. Now, it's dropped off since then. Dr. Zu did some research as of today, and June 29. Binance is sort of still pumping out there in US dollars around about 4.57 billion turnover a day. And that's without Europe and a number of other countries that Binance has been told, no, we don't want you. 300 million users. Dr. Zhu would love to capture those users. Be unbelievable. Now, at 4.57 billion a day, that's still around $45 million profit per day. That's not a bad outcome. 45 million per day. Now, the closest exchange in the world that's operating that looks okay is Bybit. It's doing about 1.42 billion a day. OKX is doing $1 billion, and then you get down to the dribblers. Coinbase is only doing 759 million. So you can see the big differential there. Now, given his background, given that we're talking quantum computing, given that he knows the effect of how this works and the volumes that Binance is talking about, which is why we didn't want to list the Zucoins on these markets, because they have the full control over what comes on and off, and then they're subject to massive regulatory problems because they don't comply. That's what got Dr. Zhu thinking before we started the soft launch on Zutopia. What the hell do we need a bloke like this? You know, he's a good guy. He's come out of China, born in 1977. His family moved to Canada around 1989. He did a bit of computer science there at the McGill University, gained experience in high-frequency trading systems before entering crypto. So he was involved with blockchain.info, and then launched his Binance in 2017. Raised a few bob. He's got this cash flow coming in. But he's very, very in the big-time grey area on compliance. Now, listen to this. Given all of that, you'd think he'd have a bit more respect, I guess, that even though Satoshi's got a few things wrong, which we've highlighted, the vision of Satoshi in the original papers in 2009 were quite clear. He wanted a decentralized, transparent system of moving value around the planet between normal humans, not controlled by the banks, not freezing accounts, not telling you what to do with your money, like poor old, Dr. Zhu trying to send a $500 donation because of alligator blood and getting told that that's been investigated and closing his accounts down for 24 hours till they realised that there was a horse called alligator blood. Famous horse. First horse in the world in history to have a spinal reconstruction to win 7 Group 1s and over $9.6 million. But tax-free, by the way. Think about that. Got all this CGT problems with Albo and Jimbo, Thelma and Louise. And there you have this industry that can give you some tax-free returns. That's for another day. That is a tangent. For those that listen, that is a tangent that we can have on a separate show. But let's look at the situation with CZ, the owner and founder of Binance. And this was what horrified Dr. Zhu. Let's just have a little listen to his interview on the weekend in relation to his thoughts about Satoshi, the coins that are owned by Satoshi. Now, Satoshi could be as dead as a dodo. Who knows? But the fact is, if you've got coins or you've got assets, they're your assets. And if you want to die, like we had this poor gentleman the other week that was dead for 18 months and the family is scrambling to try and find his Zucoins, but he didn't want to leave it to anybody, then so be it. If you want to leave it to the Dog Society or the Blind Society, you do what you like. And if Satoshi is dead, well, that'll go to his estate. Surely there'll be something there that Satoshi's left in his will to family, friends or relatives, or he might have just decided that he wants to burn the entire lot of his holdings, which is the largest holding in the world, and let him go. That's his right. Now, CZ comes along and conducts this little interview, and he decides that he's going to be recommending, in a nice way, to those that control Bitcoin, that is the ability of those that have the consensus to get together. I'll just generalize it down. So if you get a gang of people that are behind the scenes trying to look at the problems in Bitcoin because of the nature of the blockchain, and you've got miners out there and all the rest of it, they can actually get together, and given a certain level of consensus, they can change the roadmap of Bitcoin, which they've done a couple of times already. That's why you have things called forks, the fork in the road. The original code goes down one road, and then people say that's not working too well. We'll change it, and we'll change the code, and we'll create XYZ, which is why they created Bitcoin Gold and Bitcoin Cash. Now, Roger Ver is a big fan of increasing the capacity sizes and reducing the costs and things, so he runs around with Bitcoin Cash. So you end up with these little fragmented components of new coins that are created from the fork. But CZ, he's got a solution, and he says, well, quantum computing is going to be a huge problem because 6.3 million Bitcoins are in real trouble because you've got to flick the switch when you look at the transition from the existing encryption if a fork comes into play and people get together to change that fork to introduce quantum to Bitcoin, because it's not easy. It's a nightmare because there was no roadmap planning this stuff out. But let's have a little listen to this interview of CZ, and then you'll start to get a tingle up your back, your spine, as to, even though we talk about banks freezing money, that's one thing. Have a listen to this bright ass idea on what he thinks should happen with Satoshi's coins. We've got a couple of people that can't hear that apparently, so I'm going to try and source that interview. Let's have a squiz here. Because it's very important. There's some people that have heard what was there, and some that haven't, which is sad, really. Now, here we go. Let's try this.
Well, once we know we're gonna fork Bitcoin, which is I would put a fourth option on the table. Say, look, as a community, why don't we give a timeline? Say within 6 months or 12 months. If those coins don't move, then we're gonna lock them, right? So on the new protocol, on the new protocol there will be like only 20 million coins because we're just gonna lock them.
Take away a million coins.
Just take away those million coins. Those addresses will be frozen. On the mirrored one, those addresses will be frozen. I would say let's give him a year, right? If he doesn't do that in a year, I think then we give him time. He may be alive, maybe not be alive. He may even not be a person. Who knows?
Right.
All right. So, but if we don't do anything with it, then we basically give in to somebody who's going to hack it. The first guy who runs a quantum to crack it. Eventually, that will happen, and that's not a good way to distribute, in my opinion. And it's slow. So that's what I would do. That's what I would suggest. I think at the end is what we do should be up to a community vote. Once we
Now, people, I don't know how many more fruitcakes we can take on board planet Earth. I mean, the spaceship is overloaded with stupid people. The spaceship is crowded. Now, I was reluctant in the past to think that Elon had it wrong about wanting to get us all to Mars, or those certain select few to Mars. But let me tell you, it's looking far more attractive now to get on board an Elon Musk Starship and plonk your ass on Mars when you have fruitcakes like this telling us how he sees it in relation to Bitcoin because the problem was never addressed in the beginning in terms of quantum. And he doesn't like the thought that whatever Satoshi's doing with his coins, as I said, he might be dead. Satoshi might be dead, or Satoshi might not want the coins, or Satoshi might do a squeeing things with them. And the pretext of using a hacker, using quantum computing to come in and hack, and then the hacker ends up with the Bitcoin because of Satoshi's stupidity. Along comes CZ and says we should just freeze the account, create a fork by consensus, and shut down 1 million coins or thereabouts. It's actually 1.1 million coins because it shouldn't go to a hacker. That's not the point. Who gives this bloke the right to freeze people's Bitcoins? I mean, it's just absolutely extraordinary. Now, he might, I mean, this tells you what the problem is with these blockchains, because they run on proof of work or they run on proof of stake, and there's a little gaggle of these back engine bright asses that can affect the wealth and money of people because they code this stuff up. Now, there's the humble SplitChain. All it does, it doesn't process anything. It's been specifically designed to simply become like a public library. It stores a bit of data that you can refer to check what you're processing is correct. And it's signature tested. It's obviously going to be locked and loaded with quantum safe encryption. That's fine. That just takes that to another level for your protection in terms of the truth. But it doesn't put a body of people in the powerful position of dictating the terms as to who and what should have their coins frozen. I mean, it is absolutely mind-blowing. I mean, we've got enough problems with Albo and Jimbo using the public purse to control humanity from an Australian perspective. God knows what's happening in other countries around the world, like Thailand and America and all over the place. We read all these horrific stories. It's hard enough to get a product that has the capacity to maintain individual sovereign rights and still fall within the regime of governments for good reason. You don't want criminal elements involved in these things, and that's why Zutopia is delighted to be able to put in a position that says it's good money. There's nothing wrong with making money. That's what capitalism was designed for. And we have all these other wonderful terms and words that are used to try and compare with capitalism. I mean, Dr. Zhu was then, after this interview, Dr. Zhu was then listening to another interview of another fruitcake that's head of the Democratic Socialist Party of America. And you should see the list of wombat things he wants. You know, anybody that earns more than $1 million should give it all to the state. Well, that's a great idea. I mean, if you took that asset value of Australians today, and that's the minimum price of houses we talk about, that Albo thinks that young people have got enough firepower to even get $1 million house, you'd be caught up in giving everything away with no incentive because they want control. And CZ, who's worth $111 billion, he's not happy with where he sits. He's been to jail. He spent 4 months in the can. He's paid $4 billion odd in penalties. He's had more breaches than anybody in the Epstein files. And he comes up with this suggestion. How about we get together and freeze some persons or entities' coins? Now, I don't care who. Dr. Zhu, let me say, has invited Satoshi many a time to talk about the core elements of the technology that can be improved upon for the benefit of society generally, not to take the things off him. Now, we've got a bloke, as I said earlier in the show, he's built up over 3 million coins. Could you imagine if he had the news that we're going to talk about and discuss a consensus to freeze his 3 million coins? You've got to be joking. I still can't get over this interview. And he's saying it in such a way that there'll be fruitcakes out there that think this is a good idea. to freeze and get rid of it because the protocol can. Because a group of, 1977 guys that haven't been around the block have come up with an idea about other people's assets and wealth to change code. You got to be vigilant, people. This is the whole point of today's exercise. On one hand, we've got this massive push coming with quantum. You got AI in the mix. You got us all heading to Mars, which is starting to make sense now. Better off to be up there with a shovel and plonk yourself, 3 meters under the earth when the solar flares come through, or get your suit fried because you can't withstand radiation, than putting up with these fruitcakes at government levels, private sector levels. I mean, he should focus on what he's doing. He runs an exchange called Binance. He's got enough problems getting an EU license. He's making $45 million a day, and he's coming up with this stuff. Well, the Binance bloke also admitted it's more likely going to get hacked. Well, everything's going to get hacked because of the old encryption, not just Bitcoin. We went through the list earlier from our earlier specialist. His name is Shinaka. And that's what I was looking at earlier, talking about the impact of quantum on everything you do in your day-to-day life. It's not just going to be Bitcoin. You're going to have this is the sort of stuff that comes out. You start with government saying, hey, let's make the lives of under 16-year-olds better by blocking them. But in the process, let's put everybody through an ID test because you're over 16. I mean, it never made sense. If you can't identify a 16-year-old, how on God's earth can you possibly identify people over 16? And it comes back to central control. It's extraordinary. So even in the world of, if you read Satoshi's original paper, it doesn't talk about taking people's crypto or Bitcoin. In fact, last week was the 16-year anniversary where someone, as I said in an earlier show, asked Satoshi by email that if he sends it to the wrong address, if he sends coins to the wrong wallet address, this is what we have solved in Zucoins. We have a two-factor authentication. You have a sender and receiver confirmations. There's a bit of a process. It's fantastic. It's instant. It's got notifications. It's the only crypto in the world that does it. And it'll be the only crypto that'll do it for Zoo tokens and all sorts of products. It could be trillions of transactions, verifiable, every single one of them. In fact, if you looked at our Facebook update on Friday, we call that Facebook Friday, Facebook, whichever way, we give a couple of lines update just for those that don't want to listen to Dr. Zoo, for those that can't read emails, and for those that can't be bothered. There's a little couple of lines on Fridays. And in that update, we talked about we're beavering behind the scenes to expand and improve the validation of every single transaction well beyond what we currently got to as close to 99.999999% with long caching. Now, you don't have to explain that today. That's for another day. But that is something that no payment system has ever achieved in the way that's going to work. And that's just for long-term benefit because we're expecting to build massive databases where there's going to be millions and millions of people involved with millions of merchants and millions of transactions. And you could safely say people are happy because they'll have this firepower with a split chain. They'll have the extraordinary scalability. They'll have quantum safe encryption, and they'll know that what goes through is not reversible because it can't be reversible. But in this Bitcoin case, not only do they have coins going to wrong addresses, which vaporize, they're still on the chain, but they're out there in somewhere in, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory land. And then you have this guy running the world's biggest exchange, giving advice on how to create a protocol so that Satoshi cops it fair up, where with the pineapple, because he doesn't like it. Well, who cares? You and all of us. If you're stupid enough to lose your coins, that's your fault. If you want to keep them for the next... I mean, what would happen if this instance, if Satoshi had put that into a super fund and he's waiting for retirement at the age of 65 and he doesn't act on it? Well, that's his problem. That's his sovereign right to do what he likes. or whoever Satoshi is. Can't believe I'm defending Satoshi now, but look, Satoshi's an absolute genius when you think about it. At least starting this progression to sovereign control, that's what we're about. Well, there you go. I mean, this just seems to be the norm. And yet we're praising Bitcoin, and you've got people like Michael Saylor absolutely swimming in his submarine, thousands of feet underwater, on this concept that he had about borrowing his eyeballs in relation to a Bitcoin which has zero utility. We talked about this. I mean, you need to be able to have the digitization and value that you can actually deal directly, because all of a sudden you can buy a house directly. Or, I know in Bitcoin's case there's been some big transactions because people are taking them, but it's not generally acceptable across mainstream consumer merchant relationships. You'd like to go to a restaurant and pay in a fraction of a Zucoin because you know the transaction's secure. You know that there's long caching. The merchant knows that he's got the right person at the other end. Doesn't know the individual, but he knows that the wallet is verifiable because the chain confirms that and it allows it to grow. That's what I'm on about today, people. I just thought if you get a chance and you have got Bitcoin, you start to worry on two fronts. One, quantum. Remember, you know where that pineapple's going. Two, CZ. If he dominates and controls the way in which you can buy and sell Bitcoin and the others don't catch up, and he's happy to do pump and dumps and play all these games with people's coins and things, listings and all the rest of it. We've got an article on ZooAI on this. It was written probably a good 12 months ago. Now, we're not Nostradamus here, but I tell you what, we're getting pretty close. So let's just think about it. And I wanted to get your brains thinking about this because these are the solutions that we have solved through the humble little project we are doing. Now, Timid Buddy's back. I love Timid Buddy. He's one of my favourites. I'll just close on Timid. Let's see. Timid Buddy. He's got a question about a transfer. I'm not quite sure. The question is, which is quite good actually, this is good for Timid this time. If I accidentally send Zucoins to another person, they are 100% going to accept it. Then my coins are gone. Well, that's your stupid fault. Depends on the person you know at the other end. I mean, you can't mismatch the transferability if the person you're dealing with has been the right person in terms of notification to you if you're doing that transfer. So if, for example, you're doing a transfer to a merchant, that merchant can be verified by you on the split chain through the public wallet address. You won't get that with Bitcoin. You can have a QR code that relates to that transfer as well. And then there is the receipt and send in relation to that transfer. So you are confirming that that is the participant at the other end of the receiving. You have no choice in that, which again, I might remind Timid Buddy, that was one of the reasons why we initially removed the concept of following that path of one-way transfers when we had the ability to send a Zucoin to anybody's phone in the world. And we had a 30% failure rate because people did not confirm country addresses. They did not confirm phone numbers. They didn't know or realise that you removed the 0 before a mobile phone number if you have +61 or plus whatever. And that was the level of uncertainty. And that's why the signature verification between wallets behind the scenes into the split chain can give proof of ownership of the wallet that's going there. It's up to you to work with the receiver. And in the case of Zutopia, we know who the receiver is because we've registered that wallet address by signature into the system. And if they're going to pay you, that's all you need to know. You don't need to know the owner of that card, other than the fact is that you will get paid from XYZ. But we don't send the coins to any other wallet address. It only goes to the signature confirmed wallet address in the system. You've also got to remember that the wallet address, which Rocketman has quite clearly shown, and appreciate the commentary there from Rocketman, because this is important, so they can accept it shows an error. It goes to really know nothing to bring in a negative energy. Oh, yeah, no, that's all right. Look, Timid's part of the team. We've got a lot of time for Timid. We love Timid. So, Timid, it sounds like if you are struggling with the security mechanisms we put in play between sender and receiver in Zucoins, that you are the first one that shouldn't go anywhere near a Bitcoin, Litecoin, or any other crypto for that matter, because you will certainly be working out that you've got some problems with pineapples. I can assure you, Timid buddy, you're in real trouble. We're not giving Bitcoin a hard time. Timid buddy says giving Bitcoin a hard time. We are giving Bitcoin a hard time because it doesn't have the measures in place to overcome those problems. We're not talking about a security protocol that's going to freeze anybody's accounts. We're not talking about a protocol that's going to burn coins of people, Timid buddy. Bitcoin can be sent anytime you like to a wrong address. In fact, we've got a little video that we'll put out on Thursday for Timid buddy of a guy that did exactly that for $389 million, and it vaporized because he left the 2 off the wallet address. No matter where he was trying to send it to an exchange in order to convert, and it went pear-shaped, big time. At least you get signature verification if that's the exchange's wallet address that you want to confirm before you send it. You can confirm that through the SplitChain. Because if someone's promoting a wallet address and they say they are exchange XYZ, if that's the case in which you wanted to send it, then exchange XYZ would be verifiable as a wallet address on the SplitChain, if that's where it's going. So, on that note, people, Bitcoin, we're raising some incredible things in relation to others. We're making the point, Timid buddy, that third parties are controlling their destiny. We want you to control your own destiny. And if you're stupid enough to send it to the wrong person and get confirmation from the other side, then you don't deserve to play in this space. You are far better attuned to working your way through day-to-day matters elsewhere. Probably painting a house or doing something that's got a bit more physical labour involved. Building a chook shed, that would work for you. In our case, this is the space we're in, which is causing a lot of people problems. Now, we have Intelligent Local. What did you decide at your meeting today? You started telling us and then got sidetracked. I never got sidetracked because the beginning of today's show was about quantum computing, Binance not being operational in the EU, Zutopia not being a problem for what we have achieved and built, the Zucoins kicking ass, the SplitChain absolutely on firepower, our solution premeditated for quantum safe encryption. More importantly, the views of staying and controlling your sovereign rights to your assets, unlike all the other crypto that are out there, Bitcoin, etc., etc. Now, given all of that, let's put all that into one big pot. As a result of all of those wonderful things, and you've got to start somewhere. What we decided today is that this region of Albury-Wodonga will become Silicon River, rivers of gold, Silicon River. You've got Silicon Valley, that's old hat. They're not inventing anything particularly great out over there. In fact, they're recommending products like Anthropic with AI, where the owner and founder of Anthropic AI is telling people to stay away from it. What an extraordinary concept that is. So let's stay focused, people. We are now talking about Silicon River, rivers of gold. That's how Dr. Zu sees it. That's how Dr. Zu wants it, because he can sit back and achieve the outcomes for the masses. It's about all of us. It's about our new friend today with over 3 million coins, which is mind-blowing, maintaining and handling his sovereign rights to that without any third parties being involved as to what he wants to do with it. and he could leave it to the guide dog society if he so wishes. On that note, people, we'll leave it with you. Cheerio, enjoy, and do some research on CZ, because that's the exchange that we could have ended up on in all sorts of mess. We are waiting on AUSTRAC. We are waiting on the Australian Financial Review awards, and we're getting free due diligence and audits in relation to our entire product range and back-end protocols as a result of those two components that we're pulling together. We'll keep you posted. Look forward to Thursday, everybody. Take care. Enjoy.